Now, WSAV Storm Team 3 on your side presents Storm Watch.
Good evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Allred with Storm Watch. Last hurricane season, 8 different storms smacked into the U.S. coast. There were 21 named storms in all. The season ranked as the third most active year in history. And with repairs and recovery efforts still ongoing, it would likely go down as one of the most expensive hurricane seasons in history. And yet, besides seeing a little bit of action from Tropical Storm Elsa, we lucked out again. But luck eventually runs out. Today's hurricanes are getting stronger, they're lasting longer, and they're intensifying more rapidly than ever before. So if a storm heads your way, you need to hide from the wind and run from the water. You will need to get out.
It's becoming the norm. Another above-average hurricane season is in the forecast for 2022. The prediction? NOAA's calling for a range of 14 to 21 named storms. 6 to 10 of these could become hurricanes. 3 to 6 could become major hurricanes. That's category 3, 4, or 5, where winds are stronger than 111 miles per hour. And the confidence in this forecast, well, it's high. And if it does turn out as expected, this could be the 7th straight above average hurricane season. Just looking back at 2021, it wasn't as prolific as record-shattering season in 2020, but it was still an overachiever. There were 21 named storms, 7 were hurricanes, 4 of which were category 3 or higher. The first storm of 2021 formed in May, and the last one formed in November. So it was a long and active season, and it was an expensive one, costing roughly $80 billion in damage. The most destructive storm of last season was Hurricane Ida. It flattened entire communities after making landfall in Louisiana as a category 4. The storm left more than 1 million people without power, and some of those outages lasted for months. Ida also brought chaos to the Northeast, where it dumped up to 10 inches of rain. So several areas saw record totals in a single night. New York City even took a direct hit from Ida. Subways turned into walls of water. Floods pushed cars down streets. Basement apartments were flooded. Residents were trapped. Even more devastating, the death toll. Estimates say Ida and its aftermath led to 91 deaths across 9 states. But back here at home, once again we got lucky. We only had to deal with Elsa, which was the first hurricane of the season. It formed into a tropical storm on July 1st in the Caribbean. A few days later, Elsa headed across the Georgia and South Carolina coast. In Jacksonville, winds from Elsa caused a tree to fall on 2 cars during an afternoon commute, and 1 person was killed. In Georgia, there were reports of multiple injuries after an EF2 tornado hit an RV park. Then throughout the coastal empire and lowcountry, we saw tropical storm force winds and flooding rains. Widespread rainfall totals were about 3 to 5 inches, but Skidaway Island got the most with 8.2 inches. The heavy rain flooded several roads, with 13 people needing rescuing from their vehicles. And it's estimated the total cost of damage from Elsa was around $240 million.
A siege of hurricanes and tropical storms over the past 5+ years has inflicted $500 billion of total damage in the United States. Beginning with Hurricane Matthew of 2016 through Hurricane Nicholas in 2021, 19 hurricanes and tropical storms caused at least $1 billion in damage in the U.S. Now, not only are tropical storms costly, but they are dangerous. Emergency management officials in Georgia and South Carolina are encouraging you to do these 3 things during hurricane season. Know your zone, prepare your home, and remember your route. Be aware, if you live in a coastal area, you are prone to flooding from storm surge. And even if you don't live along the coast, you could still see some impacts from a tropical system like strong winds, tornadoes, or flooding. And know your hurricane evacuation route if an order is issued.
2022 is shaping out to be a pretty active year in terms of the types of emergencies that people in South Carolina need to prepare for. So it's always important to have that personal emergency plan and make sure everyone in your family knows what that plan is.
With each tropical threat we talk about storm surge, flooding, coastal erosion. Storm Team 3 meteorologist Alyssa Carsley breaks down why our flooding threat continues to increase each year.
It feels like we use the word flooding just as much as any other meteorological word. Coastal flooding with the onshore wind flow.
Flooding, coastal flooding.
Right next to Victory Drive, which is notorious for flooding.
Flooding for areas that receive excessive rainfall.
So why has it become a frequent, everyday common occurrence, especially during hurricane season? Well, it comes down to a few things that both increase the problem and go hand in hand. Starting off, we have main rivers that bleed into smaller rivers and creeks all over. During any event, water can easily pile up in those waterways. And with wind pushing water onshore, the water can't retreat. It can't move anywhere. One example of this happened during Irma, but this also happened last year during Hurricane Ida. Ida left major flooding in its path through the U.S. All that water had to trickle down to rivers and then to the ocean, leaving us with elevated tides. And high tides are only set to get higher due to the new wobble in the moon's orbit. The moon has a regular wobble in its orbit that takes just over 18 years to complete. In a study released by NASA last year, this new wobble will affect our gravitational pull and influence the tides. The moon is in its tide amplifying cycle currently, where high tides get higher and low tides get lower. This cycle allows for more water to be pushed onshore, taking longer to recede. We already saw this last November, one full week of coastal flooding due to a strong coastal storm. 6 consecutive days where high tides reached minor to moderate flood stage, with the highest flooding occurring on November 7th with 10.45 feet, which is now set as the 4th highest tide on record at Fort Pulaski. From our coastline sitting near sea level to our far inland communities only climbing to a few hundred feet above sea level, we are all sitting at a low elevation. With a mainly level or gradual decline to the ocean, it is going to take water a longer time to drain and allows for water to sit a little while longer.
Another growing concern during hurricane season is the population boom in our area. Census data shows thousands more people are calling the coastal empire and lowcountry home each year. What does it mean if you need to evacuate then? Because when you have more people to get out, it will take longer. WSAV News 3's Jessica Coombs spoke with the Chatham Emergency Management Agency to find out its plan.
With any population growth and also with infrastructure changes that happen throughout a community, it does affect your evacuation timing. So we have methods in place to where we can actually adjust our population count. We can adjust how we feel the community is going to react to an evacuation order. So we can move that evacuation timing up or down based on the conditions that exist within the community, both what is our occupancy, what is our tourist occupancy.
Census data shows Chatham County continues to grow at a steady pace, with areas like Pooler becoming a hot spot for families, seniors, and young professionals. Dennis Jones says planning ahead is critical when you're making an evacuation plan.
Chatham County, you're looking at almost 300,000 people that you're trying to get out of an area within 24 to 36 hours. So it is going to be congested along the road networks, and we want to make sure that people have ample time to get out. And we also want to make sure that those with a special need or a particular need, that they get out a little bit earlier than the general population.
Chatham County officials say with constant population growth means more tourists on places like Tybee Island. So not only locals need an evacuation plan.
There's always a large influx of tourists in our area. Oftentimes those tourists come from areas who have never even seen a hurricane, or they aren't impacted by hurricane threat. So we want to make sure that we're educating them as well.
Jones says partner agencies work together to create easy access to information, but he says nothing should replace having a personal emergency plan and kit.
We also encourage everybody to have a family communications plan and how they're going to communicate with each other in an emergency situation. Also, where are they going to go if they have to evacuate? How are they going to get there? We really want to make sure that they are doing those two simple things, putting that plan together and putting that kit together. And if we can do that, we'll be a much more resilient community.
Reporting in Chatham County, Jessica Coombs, WSAV News 3, on your side.
The Civic Center will still be the evacuation assembly area. SEMA says in the event of an evacuation, Georgia and the American Red Cross have built a plan to send people to cities around the state. Now, still to come, protecting one of the most popular destinations in our area.
We know we're going to get hit by a storm at some point. How fast can we bounce back from that?
The unique threats Tybee Island faces from tropical cyclones and how leaders are working to protect the people who live there. Welcome back to Storm Watch. When a hurricane forms, it gets a rating, Category 1 to Category 5. The Saffir-Simpson scale was developed in the 1970s, and it was created to help people decide how they should respond to storms. But it doesn't always do a perfect job of indicating potential dangers. Storm Team 3 meteorologist Kyle Dennis explains.
The fear, anxiety, and drama associated with forecasts of landfalling hurricanes is unmatched by just about any other weather event. If we haven't lived through one ourselves, we've at least seen it on video. Roaring winds effortlessly ripping roofs off of homes, trees toppling over, and debris flying through the air. While the strength of those winds determines a tropical system's category, there is an impact even deadlier than wind: water. It may be surprising to learn that flooding, rainfall, and storm surge are not actually part of the intensity rating system, even though they often take far more lives and cause greater damage than wind. Storm surge alone counts for roughly half of all tropical cyclone-related deaths in the United States. Powerful winds blowing water toward the coast combined with extreme low pressure cause the water to swell and inundate not just the coast, but even inland areas near rivers. Homes and businesses can be completely destroyed, people drown, and the shape of a coastline can be forever changed in the most severe cases. While it may seem to reason that the stronger the storm, the greater the risk of storm surge, it's actually a bit more complicated. Given the right set of circumstances, it is entirely possible for even a tropical storm to produce more surge than some hurricanes. While on average hurricanes will produce more damage, that is not always the case. To understand why that is, it is important to know exactly what is being conveyed when looking at a storm's classification and intensity rating. The Saffir-Simpson scale is the standard tropical cyclone ranking system used by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The categories you are familiar with, 1 through 5, only represent one component of a hurricane, the maximum sustained wind speed. Those peak winds are located in a relatively narrow band in the eye wall of the storm, sometimes only 10 or 20 miles wide, while the storm itself can be hundreds of miles wide. The storm category does not consider the size of a storm, how fast the storm itself is moving, the amount of rainfall flooding it might produce, or whether it may threaten an area at high tide or low tide. Combine those details along with many others have far greater implications for the severity of potential damage by a hurricane than just its maximum wind speeds. It is entirely possible to get significantly more surge out of a large, slow-moving tropical storm that hugs the coast at high tide than a compact, fast-moving hurricane that makes its closest pass at low tide or farther offshore. Hurricane Matthew brought significant storm surge and even a record-breaking high tide at Fort Pulaski. Contrast that with just a few years later in 2019, Hurricane Dorian took a very similar track to Matthew, yet produced no significant storm surge at all. It all came down to timing. With Dorian, winds were blowing offshore at high tide, preventing any serious flooding from occurring, which is why you may not even remember that storm now. It was an important reminder that there is far more to consider than category alone. Every storm is different, and it is critical to keep up with forecast details that can significantly change leading up to their approach.
Well, it used to be a bit more complicated. These days, when you were looking at a storm surge forecast, you were really looking at the predicted flood levels. You no longer have to do any math. So if the forecast is for 4 to 6 feet in your location, that's how much water to expect above ground. As a barrier island, Tybie's low-lying land is prone to flooding during hurricane season. City officials say the highest storm surge recorded was 19 feet above sea level back in 1893. WSAV's Brian Ray has more on the plans to protect the island and keep residents safe.
On a windy beach day, the waves on Tybee Beach can get strong and choppy, but add a hurricane into the mix and those waves can cause dangerous flooding on the island.
We have a Category 2, a Category 3 hurricane come in. What that storm surge looks like, it's very dangerous. It's not survivable depending on the size of the hurricane.
For Tybee Island Emergency Management, storm surge is the main concern during hurricane season. After Matthew and Irma left homes and businesses damaged, the city has been working on measures to prevent flooding.
A lot of this was underwater after Irma. We built dunes to help prevent that storm surge from making its way into this area of the city and exacerbating the flooding from the backside of the island.
On top of that, a grant from FEMA is allowing residents to raise their homes. The city manager says 49 homes have applied and leaders are looking at applying for a third grant.
Water can come in and not destroy the home, and if it comes in and goes out. It also helps us on the insurance side when we have fewer repetitive loss homes. Once we get those lifted, we can lower that repetitive loss number down.
This and other projects are all part of Tybie's Sea Level Rise Plan, the first city in Georgia to have one.
We know we're going to hit by a storm at some point. How fast can we bounce back from that?
Officials say residents need to prepare for potential flooding now and not when the first storm is rolling in.
We can replace homes, we can replace businesses, we can't replace people.
Reporting on Tybee Island, Brian Ray, WSAV News 3 on your side.
This year, lawmakers in Congress introduced the Tybee Island Storm Risk Management Act. It would add 50 years to the federal government's agreement to renourish the island's beaches, which helps protect it from storm surge. The current agreement will expire in 2024. Still to come on Storm Watch, how Storm Team 3 uses technology exclusive to the coastal empire and low country to track storms, giving you a more accurate forecast. Plus, we're on your side with these tools to help you prepare your home.
Hurricanes and tropical storms are notorious for producing excessive rainfall amounts. Before a storm hits, take time to clear out your rain gutters and downspouts to improve water flow and to reduce your risk of leaky roofs. Also, make sure the downspout is directed away from your foundation to reduce the risk of erosion.
When a storm forms, we now have access to constant storm updates 24/7. And watching all of the storm updates can lead to extreme anxiety for some. And then, if you're asked to leave, it can lead to even more stress, wrestling with whether to stay or leave and what that decision could cost you and your family. But there is new technology to help you before and after a storm. Here's Storm Team 3 meteorologist Scott Roberts with more.
Technology continues to improve to help you better weather a storm. Often we turn to portable generators when we lose power after a storm. These are not designed to power an entire home. Manufacturers do make whole house generators that are designed to provide the power needed to handle the load. An emerging technology, though, is solar power generators. These harness and store energy from the sun by providing backup power during an outage. These systems can even help you lower your electric bill each month by lowering your reliance on power from the grid. Another new technology is helping evacuations in Chatham County to be smoother for leaving and returning. Chatham County Emergency Management Agency has partnered with the traffic app Waze. Information such as downed trees or power lines, this will help your return after any potential damage to be safer as you make your way home. The Waze app is free and available in the app and Android stores.
When it comes to staying weather alert, Storm Team 3 is also on your side with our WSAV Weather Now app. With the upgraded interactive radar, it's quick and easy to use. You also get storm and lightning alerts based on your location. Storm Team 3 meteorologists also upload video forecast multiple times a day. And we even have a step-by-step video to show you how to set up the app and how to use it to best suit your needs. Now here's a short clip of the online tutorial that I've placed on WSAV.com.
You're taken to the WSAV Weather Now home screen. Here you have 3 basic sections on the current conditions and forecast, Viper radar, and then a video forecast from a Storm Team 3 meteorologist. Now, no matter what section you go to next, the location manager is always on the top right of your screen. Click on the locations manager or icon and notice it's already tracking your location because you agreed to it when you first started the app. If you don't want the app to track your location, you can still add locations. These locations can be examples like your home, school, or work, and alerts can be sent for these specific locations. You can add a city, zip code, or specific address.
So even if you're not the most tech savvy, we have you covered. The WSAV Weather Now app has multiple settings and maps that you can customize to best fit you. And it can be used anywhere, and you can track multiple locations at once. You may have noticed Storm Team 3 meteorologists referring to Viper Radar and Vipercast, some of our newest tools and technology. But what exactly is Viper, and how does it help us forecast and track hurricanes? Here's Storm Team 3 meteorologist Kyle Dennis to explain.
Back in 2021, Storm Team 3 acquired advanced new tools exclusive to the coastal empire and low country, Viper Radar and Viper Cast. Viper Radar helps us track hurricanes better than ever before, and Viper Cast helps us forecast them long before they even form. You'll often hear us say we are monitoring the tropics this time of year, but what are we actually looking at? For starters, we're looking at sea surface temperatures and how they compare to average. Hurricanes thrive on warm water, and in particular 80 degrees or greater. One of the reasons hurricane season starts in June is because that's about when large areas of the ocean have reached that critical threshold. With ViperCast, we can easily identify where tropical moisture is pooling in the atmosphere. These areas of red are showing us high levels of moisture in the atmosphere, and that is our first clue to watch for tropical cyclone development. But there are other factors that limit the development of hurricanes, such as dust in the atmosphere. You may have heard us mention Saharan dust, and the reason we watch for that this time of year is because large dust plumes originating from the Saharan desert can track westward all the way across the ocean. High dust levels in the atmosphere means a lot of dry air, which is the enemy of tropical storms and hurricanes. Another limiting factor we watch for is wind shear. Wind shear is the measure of wind changing both speed and direction as you move up in the atmosphere. Wind shear tends to blow the tops off of thunderstorms as they grow vertically, which prevents them from organizing into a complex. Conversely, areas where wind shear is low tend to be more favorable for hurricanes to develop. Perhaps my favorite feature of ViperCast, though, is its ability to combine all of these factors into a single, simple hurricane index. Green indicates unfavorable conditions, while areas of red indicate favorable conditions. And these areas of red will often show up on this index well before a tropical cyclone even forms, which gives us a very early heads up. Of course, we always hope no hurricanes will come near our shores, but if they do, we are more prepared than ever with Viper Radar. Viper allows us to visualize and break down threats in real time better than ever before. Before, when we wanted to explain the difference between areas of heavy rain, large hail, and damaging wind, we had to show you 3 separate images, but Viper simplifies that by allowing us to separate multiple types of threats on a single image, which saves time when every second counts. It takes the radar returns and can distinguish areas of heavy rain, large hail, and damaging wind, and it applies a simple color code. Hurricanes also come with the threat of tornadoes, and Viper is much more accurate at detecting areas of rotation and displaying them clearly. With the rotation detector, you don't have to know how to look for areas of green and red velocity couplets. Anytime you see color on the rotation detector product, it immediately tells you there are rotating winds in a possible tornado. Weak rotation is colored in green, strong in dark red, and extreme in yellow. Storm Team 3 meteorologists have decades of experience combined, and through these exclusive technologies, we are thrilled to be able to bring you the most critical weather information faster, more accurately, and more precise than ever.
Still to come, making sure your pets are prepared for evacuation. We'll break down the items you need ready for them.
Many questions can come up when it comes to hurricane evacuations. How will I know if my family is safe? How will I let them know if I'm okay? If you and your family have to leave, think of PACK when it comes to evacuating. P. Pick a place to meet up away from evacuation zones. A. Add emergency phone numbers to a notebook and phone for each family member. C. Have an out-of-town contact to stay in touch with. Most cell phones allow you to create a text message group. You can use it to keep family members in the loop with your evacuation plan and even share your location. When you share your location, you can choose how long you want your out-of-town contact to know your whereabouts. Also be sure to share your evacuation plans with your out-of-town contact if you didn't already. Planning in advance will help ensure all family members know how to reach each other and where to meet up in an emergency.
As our climate warms up, our tropical storms and hurricanes are getting stronger. They're producing stronger winds, higher storm surges, and record rainfall totals. Storm Team 3 meteorologist Scott Roberts explains why with a look back at 2021.
Over the past several decades, tropical systems have been frequently and rapidly intensifying as they develop, often just as they are about to make landfall. In 2021, 5 storms rapidly intensified in the Atlantic Basin: Elsa, Grace, Ida, Larry, and Sam. Rapid intensification is when the sustained winds increase at least 35 miles per hour within 24 hours. Hurricane Ida formed in the Caribbean Sea, eventually achieving Category 2 status in late August in the Gulf of Mexico. Then within a span of 2 days, Ida rapidly intensified to a Category 4 hurricane with a 150-mile-per-hour sustained wind. Ida went on to make landfall as a Category 4 hurricane with peak wind of 150 miles per hour in southeast Louisiana. Climate change and multi-decadal weather patterns have been favorable for more storms to develop and for hurricanes to become larger, stronger, and longer lasting. Larger storms produce greater storm surge and more inland flooding because of heavier rainfall amounts. One of the main ingredients for tropical development is warm ocean water temperatures 80 degrees or greater. Since 1880, almost as far back as water temperature records go, the average global water temperature has increased about 0.2 of a degree Fahrenheit per decade. Most of the warming has occurred in the last 30 years. In the Gulf, water temperatures on average run 1 to 2 degrees warmer than normal, with near-shore water often over 90 degrees in the summer. Off the east coast of the U.S., the Gulf Stream is normally warmer than 80 degrees Fahrenheit and at times is more than 82 degrees. That is enough to enhance further development of tropical systems and hurricanes as they approach the coast. Situations like Hurricane Ida show us that we should prepare for a hurricane that is at least one category stronger than what is forecast.
Another important part of preparing for a storm is making sure you have a disaster supply kit for your home. This is needed even if you're not ordered to evacuate. A strong tropical storm or hurricane could leave you without power, food, and other supplies for several days and possibly longer. Being prepared means having non-perishable food, water, and medicine to last each person in your family for a minimum of 3 days. Make sure you have a manual can opener handy, as well as a flashlight with extra batteries. A first aid kit is also a great idea. Also, make sure you have a battery-powered radio or NOAA weather radio. You need a dust mask and you need wet wipes. And garbage bags are also a great idea for sanitation following the storm. You'll also need a portable crank or solar-powered USB inverter to charge your cell phone. We spend so much time putting a plan together to keep our families safe in the event of an evacuation, but we need one for our pets too. WSAV News 3's Patty Turner is taking a closer look at how to make that plan. She's on your side with what you need to have in your pet evacuation kit.
So this is Dexter. He is definitely my baby, and if I had to evacuate for any reason, he of course is going to come with me. So he needs his very own evacuation kit, and it all starts with a storage bin. So the first thing you need to put in your kit is water, and you're going to need lots of it. Make sure you have enough water for each pet for 3 days. After the water, make sure that your pet has enough of his favorite food to last him while you're gone. Also be sure to take with you your pet's vaccination records just in case, and if they have any medications, you want to bring that as well. Also, make sure you have your basic first aid kit just in case there are any emergencies along the way. And it's always a good idea to have a flashlight with extra batteries. Well, you of course want to make sure that your pet is comfortable while you're gone, so pack his or her favorite blanket and their favorite little squeaky toy. Be sure to keep your collar on your pet at all times so they have contact information on them, and be sure to bring a leash and maybe a spare one just in case. So if you're traveling with your cat, you don't need a fancy litter pan. You can simply use one of these aluminum ones from the grocery store. And if you're like me, this next step will be very easy. Keep lots of pictures of your pet right there on your phone. So Dexter is microchipped, which makes it a lot easier to find your pet if you get separated. So if you haven't had your dog or cat microchipped yet, now is the time to do it before an evacuation is needed. And finally, it may be a good idea to invest in a pet life jacket because flash flooding can happen in an instant. All right, Dexter, you ready? Let's go.
Patty has one more important piece of information to share. Don't wait. Find a hotel or shelter that accepts pets. That way there will be no surprises or unexpected cost if you need to leave in a hurry. Many of you will also need to make a plan for your boat. Experts say try to find a safe spot for your boat, which is protected on all sides from storm surge and winds. Strap it down tight to the shore or a dock so it won't move. Or use 2 anchors if possible, and point the bow in the direction of the wind. Tie down anything that could move or fly away. Disconnect from shore power and do not stay on board if at all possible. No matter how valuable your boat is, it's not worth your life. Stay with us. There's another half hour ahead as Storm Team 3 Storm Watch continues.
Windows and doors are weak spots in structures that have to be protected before a storm moves in. Storm shutters are a great form of protection, but about 5/8-inch plywood can be used to protect your windows from breaking. The idea is to keep wind from getting inside and blowing apart your home. Never leave windows open to relieve air pressure.
When Storm Team 3 tracks tropical storms and hurricanes, our weather maps use a cone to show a storm's possible track. While the forecast cone for tropical systems may seem straightforward, there are actually quite a few myths about what they mean. Storm Team 3 meteorologist Kyle Dennis takes a closer look.
One forecast product we're all familiar with is the dreaded forecast cone of uncertainty. However, there's often a lot of confusion about exactly what the forecast cone means. The cone does not factor in the size of the storm, and it is not based on the range and model solutions you see on the spaghetti plots. It is simply a forecast for the center point of a tropical cyclone. The width of the cone is fixed each season based on the average 5-year track error in the forecast. That means each season the width of the cone is the same for every single storm and does not give you an indication about the uncertainty in the forecast specific to that tropical storm or hurricane. To construct the cone, the center position is forecast out to 120 hours or 5 days. A circle is then drawn around each of these forecast points. The radius of that circle is again based on the average forecast error for that time period. For this year, those circles are a bit smaller at 24, 48, and 72 hours, thanks to the fact that forecasts have been improving. That means this year the cone will be more narrow out to 3 days. Once those circles are drawn, the cone is then drawn in to connect them. And while the forecast cone is an important tool, always base your action plan on the specific forecast details of the storm and not whether or not your area is inside the cone. Hurricanes are large storms, and deadly impacts occur well outside of the center and oftentimes well outside of the cone.
When it comes to preparing for a storm, making a decision about whether to evacuate could be life-saving. WSAV News 3's Stacey Kershaw spoke with experts to see why many Georgians are actually prepared for an emergency and why residents have changed their minds about leaving their homes.
It's very important to, have a plan.
Hurricane season is here. And when it comes to staying safe,
preparation is the key to making sure you aren't stuck in the path of a deadly storm.
A survey by AAA found that nearly half of Georgia residents aren't ready to weather a storm.
Here in Georgia, 48% do not make advanced preparations for hurricane season.
And when it comes to having an evacuation plan, many don't know where to go.
39% don't even have an evacuation plan.
Experts say some people hesitate to make plans to leave their homes.
Sometimes folks don't want to leave their pets. Again, folks not knowing what the evacuation route is, or not wanting to leave their dwelling. There are plenty of routes and shelters that you can go to, that, you can take your pets to. So it's all about educating yourself prior to the storm hitting.
And this year, for Georgians, the decision to evacuate could come down to gas prices.
36% of Georgians stated that, they may stay at home because of high gas prices. Take that chance, not evacuate. We do not recommend that at all. Since we know that gas prices are going to be pretty elevated this summer, we suggest that you start saving now.
Despite these concerns, experts are reminding you the decision to evacuate could save lives.
Life is important, and it's very important that you have these things in place.
Still, AAA says more Georgians are becoming aware of the risks.
25% or Georgians are more concerned this year about hurricane season than they were last year.
We spoke with some people who live in high-risk zones in Chatham County to see what it would take for them to evacuate.
I don't think I would mess around with a large-scale storm, maybe 3 and above.
Residents say they haven't always evacuated in the past, despite warnings, but that different factors could influence their decision to go.
I evacuated in a handful of storms, didn't in a handful, and got to see it firsthand. My house actually flooded in Irma, so I took about 2 feet of water through the house.
I have a 4-year-old daughter, and ultimately, like, if it was me by myself, it's kind of like, stand your castle, whatever. But when you have other people in mind, it's better to just be safe rather than sorry.
Ultimately, many agree safety should be top of mind.
I know, it's safer rather than, try to stick it out for what. I mean, you can clean up the mess when you get back. There's no reason to try to stick around.
Daisy Kershaw, WSAV News 3, on your side.
It's also important to know the terms emergency management officials use when a tropical system threatens our area. When an evacuation order is issued, that means it may be in your best interest to leave. A mandatory evacuation order means all residents, visitors, and others must evacuate. State and local authorities will announce evacuation based on pre-designated zones. For example, Chatham County has 3 zones highlighted on this map. Zone A is closest to the coast. It includes areas east of the Truman Parkway and the Vernon River. Zone B includes areas west of the Truman Parkway, but east of Interstate 95. Evacuation Zone C, that's areas west of Interstate 95. Now, still to come, heavy rain can seriously damage your home. We break down what you need to know about flood insurance.
During Hurricane Matthew, this parking lot was flooded with a foot of water, causing water damage to several cars. To avoid this, park your vehicle on higher ground after you fill up your gas tank all the way. Also be sure to have cash on hand because electronic payments after the storm may not work.
When it comes to your storm safety, you run from the water and you hide from the wind. When it comes to protecting your home, you also must prepare for both. Wind can damage your home, but so can heavy rain. WSAV News 3's Joanne Merrigan has more on flood insurance, how to know if you need it, and why you need to buy before the storm hits.
It is hard to believe what Mother Nature can do, but we have seen it here too often. A huge rain event could change your life.
Floods are devastating because they destroy everything in their path.
Insurance agent Pat Parker thinks a lot of people could benefit from learning more about a flood insurance policy.
We would wish people would consider it and get with their insurance agents and decide, because rising water from an outside source is not going to be covered under anybody's homeowner's insurance.
Chatham County does have updated flood zone maps, and if you live in an X zone, flood insurance is not required, but you can still buy it. In other zones, it is required, but let's take the pink where it is and the green where it isn't. The Islands area, for example, shows a lot of pink, but in some cases the pink is right next to a green area.
I tell people that gravity decides where the water goes, not the zone that you're in.
Parker says that's his biggest message, that maps assess general risk, which may not always be accurate if you're in the path of a tropical storm or hurricane.
Because statistics showed during other hurricanes a large percentage of areas that flooded were in that low-risk zone, but it's still flooded.
Flood insurance is done through a national program, but many local agents can sell you a policy.
You can get it whether you rent, whether you own. If you rent, you can insure your belongings. Obviously, if you own, you could insure the house and your belongings up to a certain amount. The maximum is $250,000 on the dwelling and $100,000 in contents. There are deductibles that you can choose, higher deductible, lower the premium.
Here's some important guidelines to understand. If you have a mortgage, your mortgage company will make you buy a flood policy if you live in a high-risk zone. If you no longer have a mortgage but live in a high-risk zone, a flood policy is still recommended. If you live in an X zone, your mortgage company will not require you to have a flood policy, but Parker says you should still consider it.
You can insure that risk, so why wouldn't you? Because if you were unprepared without flood insurance and you did have a flood, it could be catastrophic to you personally and to your budget.
Joanne Merrigan, WSAV News 3, on your side.
Another thing to remember, if you live in that X zone and decide you want to have flood insurance, just in case, it does not go into effect for 30 days. So don't wait until a storm is in the forecast. Now, if a mandatory evacuation is ordered and you refuse to leave, police may not be able to respond to any emergency calls. You would have to take full responsibility for yourself and your family's safety. If you choose to stay during a mandatory evacuation and you got hurt or your property gets damaged, this could affect your insurance coverage. Individual coverage varies, and each company has its own rules and policies. The only way to know is to ask your insurance company well in advance. If not obeying an evacuation order affects your coverage. Beaufort County is working to protect animals. Now people who leave them behind during disasters like hurricanes will face fines. WSAV's Andrew Davis has a look at a new ordinance Low Country residents need to know.
It's a sound folks in Beaufort County are hearing more and more every day. There's been a boom in livestock ownership in the county, especially chickens. But some of those people seem to forget their fine feathered friends when a storm comes.
You know, it's sad to say we have to put laws into place, to lessen the burden on everyone.
That's where new, stricter ordinances come in. It all goes back as far as Hurricane Matthew. Animal control went out on 380 calls during that storm, all for animals left in the elements or left altogether.
You'd be amazed at how many calls we went out on, because people left them behind thinking they'd be okay. But they don't think about the power going out, destruction from trees. So they really need to think of worst case scenario.
Fines for neglect of more than $1,000 per animal are still in place, but now you can face criminal charges on your record if you live in a flood zone and leave a friend behind.
We reached out to people that have cattle around Beaufort County, and there are higher grounds. So we're not targeting those people, but there are areas that, you do know when you purchase it that it's going to be underwater.
The new shelter in Jasper County will only take domestic animals like dogs and cats. So animal control officers say if you have anything else, get prepared now.
We have the resources to help people now, not the week of the storm or the day before the storm, but right now we'd really like them to reach out to us and we can help connect them with somebody, in Aiken mainly, and they can come down and assist in transporting them.
Next, as we wrap up Storm Watch, hear from our sister stations about the unique threats our coast faces during hurricane season, and get a look at the tools we use to help you before and during a storm. Hi there, I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Allred. Here in the Coastal Empire and Low Country, it's been more than 40 years since we've had a direct hit from a tropical system. The last one was 1979 with Hurricane David, and there are many reasons why we have gone this long. Take, for example, the shape of our coast. We are bent back toward the west, so we are pretty much hidden from most storms, unlike the Carolinas or Florida that stick out and they're more vulnerable. But make no mistake about it, we've had direct hits in the past, and we will likely have them in the future. And even if we don't have a direct hit, we have been punished by many tropical systems. Savannah even comes in the top 10 U.S. cities that are most frequently hit by hurricanes. An analysis looked at historical storm data from 1871 to today. So on the list, we come in fourth, right behind Wilmington, North Carolina. With this kind of historical data, we have to get ready because the next hit could happen this season. And Storm Team 3 is ready. Just like our sister stations in Myrtle Beach and Charleston, we have the tools and we have the experienced team. Viper Radar, it will give you the most up-to-date and accurate storm information. It's the best technology out there. And we have the team to keep you safe. With a combined experience of 66 years, our meteorologists have taken you through Matthew, Irma, Dorian, Hermine, and Elsa, just to name a few. And we will take you through what's ahead because we are here for you, whether it's one storm or many. With Storm Team 3, we are on your side.
We have been very lucky here along the South Carolina and Georgia coast. Yes, we've had glancing blows from tropical storms and hurricanes, but not a direct hit from a major hurricane. The last time we saw a Category 3 or higher hurricane hit our coast was Hurricane Hugo in 1989. That's 33 years ago. So what has happened in 33 years? A population explosion. People have moved here from all over the country. But there's a risk because there's no buffer between the tropical breeding grounds and our beaches here in South Carolina. That's why it's important to be ready each and every hurricane season. We always hope for the best, but know it's just a matter of time. It's not a matter of if, but when. It will happen again. And our company, Nexstar Broadcasting, is ready with television stations covering the entire coast of South Carolina, from WSAV TV in Savannah to right here in Charleston, WCBD TV, to our neighbors to the north, WBTW TV in Myrtle Beach. We know we've got you covered before, during, and after the storm.
We are also on your side anywhere, anytime with the Hurricane Central page on our website. If a storm is threatening our area, you can find live radar updates and breakdowns of the impacts we're expecting. We also have advice on how you can stay ready. That's all on WSAV.com/Hurricane Central. WSAV and Storm Team 3 is on your side. During hurricane season and year-round, we are here to bring you important information to help keep you safe. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Allred. Thank you for watching.